Hi everyone.
Hello.
This is our webinar called Participation in the Virtual Classroom. And my name is Cristina.
I'm Serena.
And we have Andres, who is in Ecuador. We are right now here in United States in Michigan, but Andres, he is in Ecuador. So thank you so much, Andres, for being with us. He is the person who's in charge of sharing all of the links to our groups and social media. So thank you. And thank you to everyone who's participating with us today in this live webinar, Participation in the Virtual Classroom. And we have our chat now on, and we have this like this because we want this to be more intimate. Is that how you say it? Intimate. Okay, so we want to know what do you think about what we're sharing. We want to know your ideas, your tips about the participation in the virtual classroom. So this is why we are here. We are part of the company Teachers Who Tech. We are the founders. And what we decided to create these webinars, these free webinars, is because, as you know, we are at this time of COVID-19. And we were pretty much forced to be in our houses. So we decided to share different tips about what you could incorporate in your lessons now that we are virtual. But also some of these lessons are something that you can use if you are a parent, if you're a guardian, if you are a teacher, if you're a student. So whatever is your role in this world, all of the tips that we are going to share here is something that you can actually use in any setting where you are right now. So this is our first webinar in English. We have 39 webinars in Spanish, and we decided that we have to do this also for our community around the world who speak English, because we all are in this together. And we want to be part of this big community that now is basically the world.
That's right. Okay, I'm just making sure everything's working.
It's working.
It's working. Okay.
Excellent.
Welcome, everybody. Again, so we are now working on translating the Spanish webinars that we've provided. We have a big Latin American presence. Christina's from Ecuador.
Yes. So if you want to hear about our webinars in Spanish, están en español para toda la comunidad en nuestra página aquí en YouTube.
And please feel free to share this with whomever you feel it might be beneficial. We create this as a resource for our community, and we really feel like our community is not just educators, but everyone involved in the education of young minds.
Yes.
Which is the educators, administrators, the support team and therapists and paraprofessionals, as well as the parents and family and community and the students.
So with that in mind, we will have a webinar where we're going to talk about a triangle, where we are going to share all of these different ideas of why the triangle is the strongest geometric figure, and our students are on the top of that. So that's going to be one of our future webinars.
Yes. Okay, so we're going to get into participation in the virtual classroom, and why do we have this as a topic today is because it's very relevant.
Yes.
Right now, beginning of August. Happy August!
Yay!
How many of you are not really looking forward to this month? So most schools are opening up this month, if not early September, but most teachers and staff are going to have to come back to work in August. And schools all over the nation are making decisions about going back virtually or opening up or some sort of joint half-half. All these different plans, and it's really unsettling. It's really difficult to know what's going to happen, what's it going to look like, and what can we control. So really, a lot of what we're going to be talking about today, yes, we're going to give some tools, we're going to give some resources, but we're really talking about a mentality here about what can we control with this huge change, but then also how much of it is actually still the same.
Yeah.
And how we can keep our focus on that. Our roles as educators hasn't changed. Our students' roles as learners hasn't changed. And so we can keep in mind and help that keep us on track for thinking about where are we going. So, like Christina mentioned, we have our chat open, and we would love for you, if you're watching this live for us on Monday, August 3rd in the evening, it's 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. California, or wherever you are in the world. If you're watching us live, please let us know who you are, where you're from, and we'll be asking some questions throughout because we want this to be participatory. We're talking about participation.
Yes, and if you don't have the opportunity to watch this webinar live, you can still send us your comments. We are going to always be looking for all of your comments and everything that you have to say about what we are sharing. So, don't hesitate. If you have any comment, any question, just send us anything that you have in mind in our chat.
Yes. All right. So let's get started.
Let me move the screen a little bit here.
Oh, you want to make our video bigger?
Yeah.
Make it bigger.
Bigger. So then they can see us better.
Yay.
There you go. So this is my question. Have you been in a meeting where it seems like nobody is really there? You can think about this scenario where you were in a meeting and someone is talking, but it seems like only the bodies of all of the people are there, but their minds are not there.
Yes. So they're physically present.
Yes.
But mentally, who knows where.
So, have you ever been in a meeting like this?
This could be like a staff meeting, department meeting, or conference or presentation. There's lots of situations in which we are the audience, we are the participants, and we are receiving information from a single or another source. And so, how participatory was it?
And should I go to the next one? Okay, because this is in general to all of us adults. But what about this if you are a teacher?
Right, so we can think about you. This is a good thing to think about our own perspectives, but we can also think about our students. Have you ever been in a class, or do you think your students have ever been in a class where it seems like nobody's really there? So,
it looks something like this.
Oops, our text got covered.
It's okay.
Our formatting changed a little bit. But we can see this, they're just, what is going on? They're not really there.
Yeah, and if you're thinking about the age of the students, we can add a lot of different elements into this. But if that happened in your classroom, or if you were in a classroom where you felt like this, there's something going on.
Mm-hmm. And we'll get to that. We'll get what that challenges are with the virtual classroom and what that looks like. But before we do, we just want you to think about these kind of situations. If you're in a meeting that's like this, most people are not really participating, they're all kind of checked out. What words or association come to mind when you think about these kind of events?
Yeah. What about you? What do you think?
I think boring. A lot of times.
Boring. I don't want to be there.
I've got better things to do.
I wish they just send me the information over the email.
I already know this, or...
Yeah. So many times when you've been in a situation like that. I definitely been in situations like that. Call them professional developments or meetings with faculty and staff. It's like, what is the point of this? So when we're thinking about this, why do these meetings seem like a waste of time? Why? Why, Serena? Why do you think they
Because they are. So the why do we have the why bold? It's because the why is the driving question. Why am I here? What information am I supposed to be learning? Why do I need to be sitting here right now?
Yeah. Why?
Or, like our good friend Rex says,
what's the point?
The point!
Do you remember Rex from Toy Story 1? When they're in the plastic bag and then they're going to...
They got stuck in the trash bag.
Yeah.
They couldn't get out.
Like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect time to freak out.
What's the point?
And they're like, the point! Okay, what's the point?
Okay, if there is no point, then we don't want to participate in something. So we have to think about this as a purpose, the driving factor for our students. If they don't know what the point is, they're not going to participate. Because there's no... Why? Why should they participate if they don't really care about it?
Yeah. So that is one of the questions that we also haven't... Let us know if your thoughts were about when you're in a meeting like this are similar to this, right? Like, what's the point? What's the point? And then you have a person next to you, you're like, what's the point?
Exactly.
And, oh my gosh.
I mean, you could think about staff and, educators and teachers. How many times you're in meetings and they're on their phones, they're on their computers, they're grading, they're doing emails, and yet they're supposed to be there. And so how can we ask of our students to be present and to participate actively if we also have moments where we're not doing that and we're not setting that example?
Yeah.
What is it? What is it about those situations? And so knowing that we've all been there,
yes,
how can we prevent being that same person in the front that just makes everyone tune out?
Yeah. How are we going to do something different? Because I want my students to be there with me.
So if we think about participation, you click something over there.
Oh, I don't know what
cancel,
is this.
Cancel. She's on 2 screens. Keep your mouse over here. Okay. All right. So, definition?
To take part in something. Very simple. Participation, to take part in something.
Okay. So, what does it look like?
Right? That's how it looks like in a classroom. Come on. That's exactly what it is in a classroom. We have all of our students raising their hands, participating constantly. Now on this chat, anyone has a question?
Hi, bye.
Oh, that's what they say.
Yeah.
Okay, bye. It was great to be here.
I actually read a really good article that talked about why am I waving so much to the camera on my video calls when I don't really wave that much in real life. And it's because you're missing so many more of the social aspects, and it's so 2D and flat and hard to relate that we create an additional social connection with the waving.
It's so challenging.
To say hi and bye as an added kind of compensatory strategy to make up for this lack of so much social information.
Yeah.
But, so, if we think about this concept of in the classroom, my students don't participate. They're not asking questions. They're not answering when I ask a question. And how do they do that? By raising their hand. But what do you think? Could there be some sort of concern or problem if we are only measuring participation with raising your hand?
Yes. And this goes with the idea of what type of learners do you have in a classroom? Okay, because everything is so connected, right? So I am asking something for the ones that are listening to me, and I'm assuming that everyone is paying attention to what I'm saying right now. Like there's no distractions around us, and then you ask a question, and all of us are gonna raise their hand.
Right? It looks exactly like this.
Yay!
Right? Who understood that question? Everybody says, I understood.
Hey,
that's not the question. It's who didn't understand.
Ah, that's the question. And the teacher is like, you, and you, and you.
Who's going to raise their hand to say, I didn't understand, I didn't?
Well, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about how we're going to change this environment and maybe get into that, right?
Yeah.
Because if it is not the right environment, maybe we're not going to be able to have this. Okay, participation. Raise your hand. Now, we're talking about something that it's very, very interesting, because when we talk about participation and a student who's deciding to raise their hand, we have to also think about what is a person who's introvert and a person who's extrovert. Mm-hmm. And in that case, I really like this image. We can see here both have thoughts. Okay, that's the idea of these little things there. They both have thoughts, but one of them have their thoughts inside and the other one is outside. So it's maybe like verbalizing those ideas, those
right.
thoughts. Is this good or bad?
That's the challenge here, because really the concept of introvert or extrovert has nothing to do with positive or negative or outgoing or shy. Nothing to do with that. It really just has to do with kind of our homeostasis, our brain neutral zone, and how do we recharge.
Okay.
And so thinking about introverts, it's not necessarily that they're shy or antisocial.
Okay.
They just prefer environments that aren't overstimulating, or they recharge in calm spaces when they're alone or with a few others. And so the concept of being with a lot of people can become overwhelming.
Okay.
And then it can create kind of some stress response for these people. They prefer to be in very few people or alone as a way for them to feel calm. Versus extroverts is the opposite, where they prefer to be around others. The idea of being by themselves and being alone might be it might be too much for them. It might be causing this kind of a stress response of, I don't like to be alone. I don't prefer it. And then that can create some anxiety around that. But they're more outward processors and they recharge with social interaction.
Yeah.
That being around others gives them more energy, versus being around others for introverts takes away a lot of energy for them.
And this is so interesting, because sometimes we have these students and also our colleagues who are repeating what the teacher or the presenter just said, right? Like they raise their hand to say exactly the same thing in their own words. So it's this idea of, okay, I'm also processing what you just said, but I have to verbalize that. While the introvert is probably also understanding, I don't know why I use the word probably. They understand what is happening, but they don't necessarily need to raise their hand to say, like, I understand what you're saying, right? Like, it's obvious. If I don't raise my hand, I don't have a question. So it's not like any of this, introvert or extrovert, is something bad at all.
Right.
It's just two different things.
But the challenge comes when we think about our school systems.
Yes.
And the school systems favor the extroverts. And if you think about it, it works really nicely for those extroverts, because they're feeding their need.
Yes.
They're getting that attention and they're able to get that extra energy because they get to say these things and everybody listens to them. And maybe it doesn't even mean they have better ideas or stimulating questions or anything like that. It's just that attention that they get. They maybe want to just say a joke or something. And so for them, we can think about it. You know, when there's some sort of meeting or conference or class, it's the same 2 or 3 people that are always raising their hands to say something.
And I don't know if that happened to you. We are also teachers, and we've been teaching for many years. And I don't know if it happened to you that some of your students, they raise their hands, they make a joke, and they really like the idea of everyone laughing at them or with them, right? They're so happy with that because they need that. That's how they recharge themselves.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. So understanding this in education, it's going to help us to understand what's introvert, what's extrovert, and how we're going to encourage our students to actually participate in a classroom. And now going back to the education system that favors extroverts.
Well, if we think that it's just the same 2 or 3 students, those are those extreme extroverts, right? They're just constantly wanting to say something, to be the ones that are having the attention in that case. And then that means that there might be 2 or 3 extreme introverts that just really don't want to be around all those people.
Okay.
But most people are kind of in the middle, and we call them ambiverts. But really, it's just like a fluctuation. There's a scale. And so depending on the situation, we might be a little bit more extroverted in social situations or more introverted in maybe professional situations. Everybody's a little bit different. It's not like you're set in stone, one or the other. But with this, if we're thinking of, we're guiding, first of all, are we continuing the lesson because nobody's raising their hand? Or, these 2 people answered it correctly. That means everybody must answer it correctly. Really, what is that factor? Why are we always relying on raising your hand?
Yes. I don't know.
You do know.
But I think... okay. I do know. Okay. I think it's because of time. You're in a classroom. You are a teacher in elementary school. You have to teach all of these different subjects: math, science, language. You have 45 minutes, 50 minutes. You are in high school. The same thing for you. You have 50 minutes to teach language. So there is no time for you to really, really understand who is in your classroom. So maybe if you ask a question, there's going to be like the first 3 students, the same first students who are going to say, I have the answer, say the answer, thank you, and then we continue. So time is something that is very challenging for us adults to understand. And we are passing the same challenge to our students because we are telling them that we don't have that for them, right? So we're saying that unless you're fast, and then you give the answer and raise your hand, there's nothing else. That's the only thing that pretty much we have in most classrooms. So time is very challenging, and I think that's why our education system it looks like it's in favor of extroverts, but I don't necessarily think that's the main reason. I think the reason is that extroverts are doing this faster,
right?
And we don't have time.
That's true. Okay, so thinking about, first of all, that and how that can affect participation. But, so what can we do as the educators is we need to think about how can we create other ways to participate that's not just voluntarily based. The idea of raising your hand is actually more related to public speaking than it is social conversation. Because you're in a classroom of 20, 30, 40, 50 other people, and to risk yourself to then say something and everybody hears you, there's a huge opportunity that you're wrong. They're going to laugh at you. They're going to think you're dumb. And a lot of people that it's not that they don't know the answer. It's not that they don't have good questions. It's the public speaking aspect of vulnerability in front of all these people who can judge me right now is really the challenge behind this system of raising your hand voluntarily. Most people won't volunteer. Right? Yeah. It's like when they're like, who wants to volunteer?
Unless I know why. And even when I know why, I will say no. I am the one who is back in the classroom and I'm like trying to hide so nobody can see I'm there. That's me, right? And then this part about being a volunteer is so big, which is pretty much the same as participation.
Right.
You have to participate to be a volunteer. And it is something that, like you said, we have to start teaching this when our students are very little. So then they get so much practice that when they are adults, then they understand how to do this.
Oh, right. And there's studies, and you can see that if a teacher in a traditional style education system in which there's mainly a lecture and passive learning going on, that there's some students that don't talk at all the entire year, and they get by.
Yeah.
They don't talk at all. The teachers even forget they're there. They don't know their names. And so that right there is showing us that, there's definitely something wrong with this method. If I don't have ways in which I'm incorporating all of my students, in which maybe it's not voluntary, maybe it's kind of mandatory that all of them have to answer this in their way. It could be writing instead of speaking. It could be writing, right? They have to write a question or they have to answer a question. Polls and surveys are great because it could just be a nonverbal, right? Thumbs up, thumbs down, or number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can do that with the video virtually. You can also have like a system of ABCD or something. They could write it and hold it up. There's lots of online polls. If you're using cell phones or other methods, you could pop up polls. If you've got some more savvy with managing certain applications and web-based resources like that, but you don't need to. And then you can also take the language out of it, and drawing is a really great opportunity for participation for those that are maybe a little bit more imagery in their thinking than linguistically. And so lots of ideas. How can we keep the participation fluid so we're reaching all of our different types of learners? And we'll get into that some more, just to keep that in mind.
And just to recap, for our new members of our channel, this community, we want to let you know that we have these webinars on Mondays, and the webinar that we have today is called Participation in the Virtual Classroom. This is something that we decided to talk about because it's so important now that we're going to start with a new school year. I just lost the word. And we want to give you some tips that you can use in your classroom. We know how challenging was participation in a regular setting. And now we're going into this virtual classroom again. So we want you to be prepared for this and feel that we are here to support you.
Okay, good. Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. So if we go back to the original question of, you're in this boring meeting, you're like, why? Why am I here? What is the point? We have to think about
relevant information. Oh, the purpose. See, that's me. So, yes, we're talking about participation, and it's so related to purpose. If there's not a clear purpose of why we're doing something, then our students are not going to be there with us. And we want this information, anything that we're using, to be relevant. So if this is information new, it has to be relevant for all of our students. They also, if you're creating active activities, make sure that those activities are active. So your students are not just there listening to what you're saying. If they're with you the entire day, 2 or 3 lessons, even when you're saying but it's just 3 hours, before it was 6 hours, but you know how challenging it is to be in front of a computer. Your eyes hurt. And we have to take in consideration so many different things. So relevant information, active activities, and this has to be personalized. And that right there is a challenge even when we are in a regular setting. We talk about personalized constantly, but what is that?
Yeah, it is a challenge, but we need to think about it because all that's going to tie into the purpose. Just using a child's name and seeing who's here and asking, okay, good. Oh, I see that Andy and Samantha and Johnny are wearing green hats today. And then boom, they kind of you hear your name and you perk up.
Oh, yeah, I have it. And that for the teachers that says that I can't memorize all of my students' names. Now, if you're using a platform, the names are right there. So technology is helping us.
Okay, so now we're talking about virtual classrooms.
Did you feel like that at the beginning?
Oh my gosh.
That was for you when?
It's more like this, like banging your head against the wall.
Oh my gosh. She actually did
it. It was closer than I thought.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you. I've heard a lot of different responses. Some people that are saying like they're excited about being able to go back if this decision is that they are going to be in person for a classrooms, because there's so much that they're missing with not being with their kids, not seeing your students in the same way. And I do appreciate that. There's also a lot of worry there, of course. And then I see the response of a lot of people that for schools that have decided to start virtually, that they're just so concerned about how's it going to go. Because, yeah, we ended the school year last year.
Barely.
I don't know how.
Yes.
A lot of kids didn't get grades. A lot of them didn't do testing. A lot of them didn't do...
It wasn't very important either, right?
Anything.
Yeah.
So really, how far did they progress and what did they learn? It's hard to say. But if we think about virtual classrooms, we're talking about live stream lessons. Live lessons. Because synchronous, yes. Because if you do a recording, it is virtual class. Asynchronous, right?
Yes.
But there isn't participation there in the same sense. They might have to do homework assignment related to that. Okay.
Or a comment.
Something like that. But it's not like you have to keep them actively involved in participating throughout the lesson. That's what we're really trying to focus on right now.
And how do we learn better? How do we do that? Just by reading, watching a video, writing comments? Okay. So it's a lot of different things that we have to think about. But yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if all of this is about just uploading information into Google or Microsoft or any platform that you're using, and then I'm just going to put videos there and all of this information, then what is your purpose as an educator? Because if that is the case, that we are just uploading things when maybe like we only need 100 people in this entire country.
Yeah, you just share all the third grade resources, you share all the algebra resources.
Yeah.
They can all get the same thing. There's tons of videos, there's tons of websites and apps and platforms out there.
Hey, and out there are great teachers who were already sharing valuable information, and it's like, oh my goodness gracious, I'm just gonna copy this teacher because that teacher is amazing. So what is our purpose?
And why are you doing live classes in the first place if they can just watch these videos and learn the information that way? What is it in the live video that they're getting? We need to think about that. Why? Why am I doing a live video? And you can ask those questions to your administrators or your different grade coaches or whatever resources that you have there. You should be asking those questions. What is the idea behind the live courses? Because it's not really about the content. It's about the connection. We need to be thinking about this as an integral aspect to our development because of the social emotional connections.
That's right. So even though we have different obstacles right now, there is something that we can continue doing and making sure that our students have. It is this connection with us as their teacher, and connection between them. How do we make that?
Yeah, and that's really what's missing. So, we had this, and whether you had individual tasks or work tables, you could kind of decide so many things. This was your space. So you could decide who sat together, or if there were different activities and different tables, or, ooh, this isn't working. Let me go to this back cupboard and get something else, and let's try this. And I know my materials, and I know my students, and I have the space, and then I know the time and the schedule. We're going to go here, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And there's a lot of things that are under the system and your control. And now
we don't have a lot of control over so many different things, and one of those is for instance, our students and how they are collaborating, if they were collaborating before.
Right, and so here, I mean, this is 2D because it's an image, but thinking about our 3D classrooms, there's so many aspects there that are coming at us from all these different angles. I can hear the conversation of these students over here, and I can see outside. Is it raining? Is it sunny? Are there birds? I can see the clock, and I know it's almost lunchtime, and we're all going to eat lunch at the same time. We all have lunch to eat. Mm-hmm. And there's so many things that are going on that are helping us to become integrated members of society. Mm-hmm. And yet, then we have...
I love it.
2D wall screen that might actually be on a screen this size to try to fit all these different faces on here. And then a lesson when it's only being projected like this at the top or something. If they don't have a computer and they're doing it on a phone or an iPad or something.
And talking about all of these challenges that we are facing, all of these barriers. Students were so smart using these tools. You've heard about these kids doing all of these things to their teachers, right? Like this one, reconnecting. I mean, I didn't even think about that. I just saw as a joke. It was shared on Facebook, I think. I'm like, oh my goodness gracious, this is so clever. Like,
well,
I want to do it.
Tell them what they did, though.
Oh, they all turned off their cameras and changed their names to reconnecting. Come on, talking about creativity, that is to the max.
That's true. Or the little girl who took pictures, screenshots of herself, just kind of sitting there, and then she just used her picture
to rotate
on her main picture, looked like she was watching, and then she's just playing on the floor.
Oh my gosh! And then I think the mom entered the room. She's like, "What are you doing? Why are you there?" And she's like, "Don't worry, mom.
I got like 10 pictures of me. I'll change them."
Yeah.
She doesn't look anyway. We're all muted.
And that is right there, participation. That is right there.
Or you're doing a bigger course, and this isn't even that many. What is it? 7 by 8, 56. Okay, so it's a little bit bigger, but maybe you have a lot of students. The challenge here, you have 2 screens, and so you can put everybody's face on another screen.
You only have an option of 49, so that's the maximum for Zoom, I think.
I see, okay.
So if you have 50...
You gotta go to another page?
You have to go to another page. That is gonna mess up everything. I mean, if you are a teacher and only has 18, 24, 34 students, you're good. If you have more than that, and how do you do that with a phone?
But if you're full screen, and let's say you have a nice 18-inch, 15-inch screen, everyone's face is still not even an inch big.
And then you share content. And then you don't have them anymore.
And they're not seeing each other. And then if you have a teacher that is a little bit intimidated or feels like needs a lot of practice, maybe this is not something that this teacher has done before and is comfortable with, then are they going to be able to notice, how do I switch back and forth between the screens? Half of it's troubleshooting. Can you hear me? Do you see my screen? You're muted, you're muted, you're muting. It's so much troubleshooting that it's challenging.
So one of the first things that we have to do, I think, is to address that this is weird.
Yes.
Right? Like, let's spend a good amount of time talking to our students about how weird is this new situation.
See how much they understand about it. Why are we at home?
And I really want them to talk. That's the first thing about participation. I want them to talk. Some of them are not going to say anything. Yes. But I still want to create this environment where they see, okay, I can say something. Do you want to talk about how weird is this? Go ahead. Do you want to chat? You want to send a text about how weird this situation is right now? Go ahead, do it. Practice. Let's create the right environment.
Right, and this is different. They always say starting fresh, clean slate. Okay, we kind of got thrown into this at the end of the school year. Not even the end, right? Kind of February, March, April.
What was you? March?
Mine was March 16th. 13th was our last day. Yeah.
This is a memorable day.
We'll never forget it. And it was like to spring break. And then it was to the end of May. And then it was the rest of the school year. But now we're starting fresh. And so what can we do now, thinking about this before school starts? What can we have in place? And so even if kids are kind of thinking, oh, it's going to be the same as last year. No, we need to start fresh, and we need to set up systems of expectations and also participation so that we're not trying to just catch up all the time. We have our trainings and PDs and everything, professional developments that they're going to provide us to get started and get going with this, but what can we do? So there are these lots of things you can find about making rules or expectations or guidelines for your class, and we really need to think about these. What is the point behind these? Because it says no chat while the teacher's talking. And then I think about this, and if I'm in a staff meeting, and I have lots of different staff meetings, I work at 5 different elementary schools. I'm a speech-language pathologist, and I'm also in the special education department. And so all the time when the person is talking and presenting, there's people in the chat saying, like, you know, where did she find this information? Or what was that link? And if you look at the chat, it's all relevant. So why would I disable the chat for my students if they're not even, like, I'm not even giving them an opportunity to develop this skill?
Well, we've done so many professional developments, and we know one of these big issues are around control. Like, I feel like teachers don't want to lose control. I know many teachers don't want to lose that control. And it's something that it's not good for students, because if we as adults, we need so many different ways of communicate our needs and to participate in so many different ways, why we're not providing similar tools, similar resources to our students? Like I said at the beginning, okay, let's talk about how this is right now, and let's use all of these tools that we have so that they get used to.
Right.
And then how much are they going to continue talking about that? And
they're just... A lot of times these decisions that are made, especially for school systems, are because they're thinking 1 or 2 students are going to create problems around this. Like, you know, okay, I'm going to disable the chat. And no students are able to use the chat because I'm thinking 1 or 2 students are going to, you know, can't control themselves or write emojis or write inappropriate things or just be off topic. And yet, shouldn't we use that opportunity to help support them? Because most students will be fine. Most students will do exactly what we're expecting. And if it's 20 of the 24 students are on topic, then yes, we can work with those other students. We could talk to those parents, trying to figure out how we can support them. But, like, for example, my school district disabled chat for all video virtual classroom sessions automatically. If you open up a video session, a virtual classroom, there's no chat. And I had teachers saying, like, I have a child, you know, my student has strep throat, can't talk. He needs to be able to chat. He can't. Or, you know, students that are more visual or
purpose. Participation, purpose go together. Anything that we do, it has to be clear for our students. If I don't care about the content that you're sharing, of course I'm going to think about doing something different. But if your content is engaging, if they are in the middle of this content, then they are going to pay attention, that they're going to do what they're supposed to do. Also, you can't be talking for 45 minutes and expecting your students not to feel uncomfortable. And that happens not just now that we're in this virtual class. That happens when we're in our regular classroom.
That happens with adults in our meetings.
Yes.
So, you know, there's some things in these ground rules that could be relevant. We just got to think about the purpose. Be on time. Completely agree, right? Of course. That's respect. That's important. Zoom from kitchen or living room. Okay, well, what if there's 3 or 4 children in that household and the entire school has these rules? So now there's 3 or 4 children all in the living room together because they have to be. When maybe a child has a really nice desk set up in their room, why can't they be in their room?
But we need to know about...
We need to know what the purpose is and what the situation is for each child.
Yep.
Maybe there's 2 or 3 families living in the same household.
Yes.
We don't know.
Yes, and then we have had that situation. And in that case, you need to know who is in your classroom.
Yeah.
And that means their families. You need to know about their families. You need to know about their situations. And in that case, you're going to understand why this kid is sitting, I don't know, in a bedroom, in a very uncomfortable position, right? Maybe that's the only space that child has.
Yeah.
So all of these expectations that we have, they have to be realistic, but we can't do that if we don't understand who's in our classroom.
Right. About muting, it's not that we think muting is bad. It's that the teacher should not have full control over mute capabilities. You could always mute all, but they should be able to unmute themselves. And if they can't, you have to unmute them. That's going to create a huge barrier, and the children or the students aren't going to want to participate because then they have to raise their hand, and the time's going to pass, or it's just really going to I'll just text somebody later and figure out what they said. Or maybe they'll ask their parents or just Google it if they couldn't figure it out. But if we really want them to participate and to be collaborative and communicative, they should be able, if we ask a question, or we should have moments in which they can unmute themselves. Because if they're not talking, then there's not that connection. If they feel comfortable, they will participate. Video on, great, that sounds amazing. Be prepared, what does that mean?
Okay,
I don't know.
When you go to the classroom, you have to go with your backpack or whatever.
Have your books.
Have your books.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing, right? You're
It's
in your classroom. It's like, oh my gosh, I forgot my book. Oh, I didn't know I have science right now. No. And all of this is, we have to collaborate with parents about this.
Yeah.
And I mean, fortunately, we have parents. So we can now ask them for help. This is the perfect moment. And it's the best opportunity for us to really collaborate with parents.
Is. The challenge is that we don't know, do we know the situation of the parents of all of our students? And maybe if you're in elementary school and you have, your classroom of your 20, 30, 40 kids that you have every single day, maybe you know those parents a little bit better. But if you're in middle school, high school, or specialty class, or resource, or therapist, and you have 50, 60 across different schools, or in one school you see 500 students, maybe not. But knowing the reality is that there are a lot of parents that are working, and they have to go to work. And so where are their kids? Are they home? Who are they with? Maybe it's not parents. Maybe you're saying, hey, Mom. It's not Mom.
Yeah. So many different challenges that we're facing now. You can ask
the student. And if they're not there, if they're in high school or something and there's no adult present, or what if there's 3, 4 kids and the adult needs to be present for this child's Zoom or virtual session, but then how can the adult be present for 3 or 4 virtual sessions at the same time?
And before you go into that, also, be prepared means you as a teacher, you have to be prepared. We've done so many professional developments. We visit many different classrooms when we see that the teacher is not ready. So now you have parents watching you.
Yeah.
And they are probably complaining and they are questioning the way that you're teaching is maybe not the appropriate. So you also have to be prepared. You want something from your students, you have to do the same thing.
Definitely. And the thing is it shouldn't change, right? It's still class. It's still education. The concept there is supposed to be the same.
I'm laughing because we know they are teachers like that. So it should change, especially because parents or somebody is watching you. You don't have only one family watching you. You have maybe 20, 30, which means 60 or 40 people watching you. So
but yes and no.
You have to change for the best.
Right. But what I want to say about that is that if you have your lesson plan, if you have your, schedule of what we're going to do today, and other parents, if some parents are questioning it, and why are you doing this and you're not doing this, you can share that with them, but you don't, the same thing. They don't go to your classroom in person and then see the lessons, and then they're critiquing you, and you should do it this way, and you should do it this way. You know, you're the professional. This is your job. And so also you need to know how to defend that as well if they're critiquing every single aspect of this is the way we do things. You know?
Yeah. But I was not talking about that. I was talking about the teachers who are not prepared, who were never prepared in a regular situation and are not prepared now. So, I mean, parents can notice if you're actually, if their kids are actually learning. That's true. That's for sure. So even if they know or don't know different ways of teaching, they know when their kid is just in front of a monitor now, just listening without moving. So what is the point of that? What's the purpose? That was the part that I was...
That's true. No, I see. Yeah. And like parents can be, they're more aware of like the quality and then the content as well.
Yeah,
I mean, they're a lot more involved. And so that should be an asset. And how can we take advantage of that now more than ever? Okay, so we have to create rules that represent the learning environment. And it's important to inform, but also get feedback from parents. And so you could send out polls or questionnaires through Google Forms or other, you know, online question-making applications. And those are really helpful. Just parents can go click, 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 and then send it back to you. You know, checking in with them. Can they email you? This is for the virtual class, and so that they can get their feedback as well. What do they think is going well? What do they not think is going well? Because if parents are on board, then they're going to get their children on board too. And then you're working all together.
Yeah. So we're like sellers. We're selling our classroom all the time. Did I use that word properly? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So,
space.
Do you think that this is the right setting for a child to learn?
No.
Okay. Me neither. What about this one? I feel like that's going to hurt her back.
She's in her pajamas.
Okay, and then maybe she's not going to be completely present because that pillow looks really nice. So maybe I want to sleep. And then all of that, it's not. No. Okay. Hey, Nina, come here. The table is clean for you.
I want to sit on the floor.
Okay. No.
If we think about, there's so many things we can't control, but if we're thinking about this is the learning environment, it needs to look like the learning environment. A child needs to be sitting at a desk or a table, being ready. Maybe, you know, if it's not the computer, it's an iPad or a tablet.
Or a cell phone.
Yeah. But whatever the situation is, some schools are providing different devices, if it's a one-on-one school, or they're able to share them in this time per family. But what's the spot? Where are they going to be doing this? That needs to be established because your mind has a lot to do with your participation. If you're in bed, that's where you sleep. That's not where you learn. That's not where you go to class, go to school, right? And so on the couch is where you watch movies and, you know.
Maybe you're chatting with your friends. Yeah, that work if you're doing that, but not when you're trying to learn something related with your grade, with your classroom. So in that case, we, again, have to talk to parents and see what's the reality in their houses and see how we can help them to have the best environment so that they can learn and they can participate.
Right, and talking about the learning environment.
Me as a teacher, do I want them to participate? Do I want them to participate?
Think about that.
You know, some of the first things that teachers learn is how to mute the students and how to mute the chat, which means that I don't really want them to participate. Okay, do I really want them to participate? Yes. Now, how? What am I doing? What are those things that I can control? Because there are so many things that we can't control. But what are those things that I can do and change to engage with my students? Because I want them to participate. when are we going to do these activities? So these are great questions, because when you have these questions and you try to find the solution to answer these questions, then you're going to be able to translate into something that looks like participation in a classroom.
Yes. We also have to think about the space, not just the physical space, but the mental space or the learning space.
And this is in a classroom or virtual.
Right. This should not change.
Yeah.
We know people only participate when they feel safe, when it is a constructive and positive and supportive environment, which has a lot to do with
processing time. And there's so many research about this, and one of the things that I know is that we need to provide at least 30 seconds. So if we ask a question, we know this student is going to take, it's going to take for this student a longer time to process, to think about it. 30 seconds. I know it's like eternity for us in a classroom. 30 seconds. It's not that much time. But somehow we don't even want to give that to our students. So now how are we going to do this in this virtual class? So think about the same thing. You are asking a question. Maybe you can provide the 30 seconds to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
To everyone. In that case, first, they feel safe in their classroom. They know there's enough time for them to think about it. Maybe they don't have to talk. Maybe they can write.
Or write it on a paper and then show it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, I thought you were going to say one more thing about that. All right.
No.
And the other one?
Making mistakes. So, if my students feel very safe in this environment, online environment, virtual environment, they can make mistakes, and there's not a problem when they do that. If they make a mistake and I look at them in a weird way, students start laughing at them, and I laugh with my students as well, then do you think this student is going to participate again? So we really have to pay attention to all of the things that we are doing and saying, and what are we allowing to the other students actually to do as well, right? Because if everyone feels safe, they're going to participate. And even with that, there's going to be a couple of students who are not really gonna get that, right? You have to give a lot more support to certain students. So even when the space is safe, and then there's a lot of processing for them to answer a question, and they can make mistakes, and then everything is okay. Even with that, there's going to be students who are not going to raise their hand, who are not going to draw the picture, who are not going to chat on this virtual class. But we have to do this, and it has to be something that we don't do only one class.
Right. We have to vary our methods too.
Yeah.
So we got some ideas and resources here, just a couple to finish up. Thinking about active participation, and it doesn't have to be content related. Like, it could just be fun and silly, and let's get people connecting. So it could be through drawing. We talked about this as an outlet for a lot of students because it doesn't require language. And reading, as many of you know, is one of the biggest barriers for academic success if they're behind in their reading level, because, you know, up until third grade, you're learning how to read, and then after third grade, you're reading to learn. And so it's challenging, so we can draw. And so even if it's just like, all right, everybody, you have 1 minute to draw a giraffe, and go. And then, there's no, I mean, the time pressure's there. It's silly. It's fun. There's no grade. There's nothing associated with this. And you're going to laugh and be silly. Like, I would purposefully, as the teacher, draw a really horrible giraffe, just so that those that drew horrible giraffes don't feel so bad. Because the teacher also drew a horrible giraffe.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, go, boom. And then you can show them, and we can look at, oh, look at that, I love yours. Oh, wow, look at yours, is as tall as a tree. Oh, wow, there's some clouds and a rainbow there. Okay, cool. Comment on it, connect, personalize. Drawing is one of our strategies. Our other strategy?
Sharing. So you can think about, you can say, you know, in our next class, we're going to share what's our favorite object.
Or
whatever it is, or hat. Well, I'm going to call it object because I can assume that everyone has a hat. But I'm going to call it an object so they can share anything. And I have 40 students, so maybe I can't ask them to share about their hats or objects in one class. So I can say, like, these students are going to share about their objects Monday, and then Tuesday and Thursday we're going to have. So everyone has the chance to talk about their objects. And we can also practicing about talking. So you're going to have 1 minute, okay? So you need to practice. Do you want to write what you're going to say? No problem. You can do that. But we want to see something, anything. What's another thing that we were saying before?
I just thought of one. Like if you had everyone hold up your objects right now, and you do a screenshot, and then you could post that if you have like a group page or something, or email it to everybody. Likely you're using some sort of classroom platform. And then they could see that. They could go back in and they could see their picture of everyone holding up their objects. Yeah. They could comment on it there maybe.
Yeah. Well, you can say, extend your left arm and whatever is there, grab it.
That's your right
and bring
arm.
it. Yeah, but it looks there. Okay, I have a phone. There.
I have a cup.
Okay, so something small, because sometimes what happens is that we are talking so much that we don't have enough space for them to relax a little bit.
Yeah.
So in participation, we also have to think about that.
Yeah. So the last resource we want to share with you is a methodology we talk about a lot of randomizing participation instead of it being voluntary, because we already know most people won't volunteer themselves.
Not me.
And I love it when they're like, who wants to volunteer? And they're like, she does. And I always say, if you volunteer somebody else, that means you volunteer yourself. And so this could just be randomized. We use, like, for example, little sticks with names in a cup, and you just kind of, nobody raise your hand right now, we're just picking sticks.
Yeah.
And so virtually there's resources. This is called the Wheel of Names. This is just a free website you can use. You could type all your students' names in, and then you just click it, and it spins.
There.
And then boom, it pops the name up of whoever it is. And so this could be to share if they got, who's going to be sharing right now. Let's pick 5 people to share an item. All right, you get to share. Or it could be answering a question. It could be like whatever, something silly. Or maybe, I don't know if there's some sort of little prize or something. I mean, it's just whatever. It's just the idea to use this as a randomized selection. And you can pop this up. The students like to see this, watch it spin around. They see their names there, and so they're like, oh, is it going to be? Is it going to be? Maybe they don't want it to be me. No, not me.
Yeah. Sounds fun.
Yeah, and so it's just another idea because it's personalized. And so if we go back to our concept of participation, is completely related to purpose.
Intertwined, right?
Okay.
We have relevant information, we have active activities, and we can think about how to personalize our teaching. Participation in the virtual class.
The class is the same. We're still teaching. The settings changed.
Yeah.
So how can we use the environment? How can we take advantage of they're at home? They could show us their pets. They could show us their pillows. We could, say hi to other family members. We can collaborate more with the parents, the families. How can we turn this into a positive situation? What can we do to help support that?
Yes, that's very important. And communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is the last one. We need to have fun. We sometimes, I think, are too stressed about all of the things that we have to do. We totally forget that when you're teaching, when you're a teacher, you're also supposed to have fun.
Yeah.
Have fun with your students. You'll see the benefits of this have fun. Your students are going to participate because they see you as a fun person with all of these meaningful activities. So have fun. All right. We are at the end of our first
English
webinar.
It's called up here.
Participation. Oh, something happened there. You're trying to...
Here's what I see. Okay.
Participation in the virtual classroom. We are very excited about these webinars. We are going to be with you here every Monday. And again, my name is Christina.
I'm Serena.
And we are the founders of the company Teachers Who Tech. Very excited to be here to create our community. We have a lot of webinars in Spanish already. So if you are a Spanish-speaking person, please go to our page and just look at our webinars. We have so many different resources for you. If you have a question, a comment, if you want us to talk about any particular topic, just let us know. Chat with us. We are here for you.
Feel free to share this to whomever you feel might be beneficial. We're all in this together.
Yo me quedo en casa.
That's the Spanish tagline. So thank you, everybody. Be safe. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.